Looking to find out what's happening on the NDSU campus? Watch Bison Information Network News every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on Cable 1 Channel 70. This student-run weekly newscast covers relevant news and current events, entertainment, Bison sports, and more. Watch BIN News Fridays at 9 p.m., Saturdays at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., and Sundays at 9 a.m. on Cable 1 Channel 70.
Bison Information Network News is brought to you in partnership with Cable 1.
Hello again and welcome back to X's and O's. I'm Jay Lennander.
And I'm Eric Bunnell.
And today we've got a whole bunch to talk about. We'll be looking at college football and then we'll be looking at some NFL and NBA in the second half. But Eric, we're going to start with the college football and we're going to start locally. The Bison had their first game of the FCS Playoffs this past Saturday against Montana State. And despite all of the potential energy surrounding the Montana State team, this was a blowout, maybe worse than any of the other ones we've seen this year.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, Montana State, they looked good on the first drive, and then after that, it was just bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, they hit him, they gashed him for like a 71,
yeah, it was a big
yard
pass.
play, and then after that, the Bison were like, nope, you just they basically just ticked them off, and then the Bison were like, yeah, we're gonna go out and put 50 on you.
Yeah, and I wasn't sweating for 1 second with that deep pass because we had just seen it. It was an exact repeat of 2 weeks ago against Southern Illinois.
Except for that one was a kickoff.
Yeah. Kickoff return for a touchdown. Oh boy. When this one, I was like, okay, yeah, we've seen this before. They gave up a big play on one of the first couple plays. But then as soon as they held them to a field goal, I wasn't scared a bit.
Montana State kind of got a garbage touchdown a little bit later in the second half, but NDSU was in full control. Lance Dunn, I know on his first 6 carries, had 4 touchdowns.
Yep, it was huge.
That offensive line was dominant, and Easton Stick didn't really have to do much this game, and he was just his normal self and kept doing did what he does, and he was rightly awarded for it with Walter Payton top 3 being invited down to Frisco to receive the Walter Payton Award.
Yeah, and I think that's really the reason why this felt like such a blowout, even in comparison to all the other blowouts they've had this year, is that offense just felt so smooth this time. They could not be stopped. It was just every time they get the ball after a kickoff, it's just boom, right down the field. And it was just one after another, after another, after another. They'd cap it off with Lance Dunn, and that's how it went.
And they weren't even like typical Bison drives. They were gushing Montana State for 10, 15 yards at a time.
Yep, and then the defense equally as good, just preventing them from doing anything and everything.
I'll tell you this. That sophomore quarterback Anderson from Montana State, he's gonna be good in the coming. He gashed that Bison defense for 140 yards, I believe, by himself or somewhere around there. Yeah. 130, 140, but he looked pretty good against that stout Bison defense.
Yeah, but when it really counted, when the Bison were racking up the points and it got to be 28-3 in that span, that's when he couldn't do anything. Nope. It was just 3 and out. Maybe they get a first down here, but then 3 and out. They just piled it on. It was just a dominating performance. And the Bison, it's very clear that they're looking to make a statement in this particular FCS playoff run.
They are. They're out to prove that this is our year. They're in a sense stick out probably with the record, knock on wood, winningest quarterback in FCS history. But man, I feel bad for Colgate coming in. They got a tough opponent.
Yeah, and Coach Kleiman, of course, was giving them some credit in the post-game conference, saying that Colgate's got a lot of seniors. It's an experienced group, but in terms of them coming into the Fargo Dome for the first time, that sort of takes away all of that accumulated experience as a team, because if you're new to that environment, it's anything goes, and especially against this team as shown on Saturday.
If you're new to the environment, good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, Delaware, what'd they score? I think they scored 10 points on us.
Yeah, 10.
And that was their first time in the Dome. Mm-hmm. I feel like this 2008 team is better than 2013, the undefeated 2013 team. Mm-hmm. But they got to finish the job before we can say that team is better, because 18 loses, 13's got the championship, and then we're obviously going to say that they're better.
Yeah. But this is sort of the accumulation of the Chris Kleiman era, of the current Bison dynasty. Everything sort of led up to this in a crescendo, and we're seeing some really good football coming from them. And it's really hard to, as we've been saying for weeks now, it's really hard to bet against them at this point. And it looks like they're just going to keep running and keep running and keep running until they get that championship once again.
Yeah, the best bet is, will NDSU or Bama one of them not win the championship this year?
And that's a good transition because it's hard to talk about the Bison extensively, especially with the sample size being, yes, we've seen a string of blowouts and nothing else, and there's no real data to dictate that anything else is going to be happening moving forward until maybe an SDS.
We can talk a little bit about the Colgate matchup. They got the #1 scoring defense in the country, but they play in the Patriot League, and that league is just bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they forced James Madison into 5 turnovers. Angry giant in James Madison and 5 turnovers. But I think with the noise of Mike Houston going to Charlotte, then Charlotte pulling the offer, and then him being linked to East Carolina, I feel like that didn't help the Dukes at all this week. So maybe that contributed to the 5 turnovers, but I still don't know. But I still think Colgate's got a good defense, and this is going to be a top opponent. But we've seen the #1 defense go up against probably the #1 offense last year, and we watched what NDSU did to Sam Houston State, and that offense was more dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And this wasn't the James Madison of past.
No.
And with everything else that's been going along, yes, it's impressive that they ended up beating James Madison, but if this was James Madison from last year or the year before, then it'd be really impressive. But with everything surrounding them, I just think that Colgate, maybe they'll be able to keep it close for a little while, but then we could see sort of a Northern Iowa situation where it just kind of explodes in the fourth quarter and everything falls apart.
I definitely can see something like that, but I can also see the Bison at home, one more win, and you're to the semis for however many years. I think that would be 8 straight years.
Yeah, something.
Because they missed it in 2010. 8 straight years in the semis.
Yeah.
How do you is there any other team we can compare them to?
I mean, in terms of FCS, it's hard, but like you just said, the comparison in terms of college football would probably be Alabama. That NDSU would probably be the Alabama of the FCS.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are saying NDSU, Bama, kings of FCS and FBS, and that's true. That's an unequivocally true statement. That's the best best 2 teams. But I still think you put these 2 teams on a neutral field, Alabama wins by probably 40.
Yeah, and that's sort of the difference in the conferences, because Alabama's getting the top of every high school recruiting class, and NDSU is sort of still fishing from lower pools, but then making something out of it.
But they're starting to. I've been seeing a lot this year. They're starting to beat out like the Power 5 schools, or not the Power 5. The lower, like the group of 6 schools.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat Minnesota out for some kids, but that's probably because they just got walk-on. They got walk-on offers. Yeah. And before we go to the FBS playoff, I just want to get your picks for the FCS playoffs for who reaches the semifinals.
For who reaches the semifinals?
North Dakota. Well, I think we both can say North Dakota State.
Yeah, that's
South Dakota, obvious. Kennesaw State. NDSU gets the winner of NDSU Colgate.
I think that's going to be a tough matchup. It's definitely going to be a closer game than NDSU.
NDSU's favored by 27.
Yeah, and that's kind of why. But I think I want to say SDSU because they know what the next matchup would be. But Kennesaw State, I think they're probably going to have the edge. It's going to be a back and forth affair more than likely, but I'm just going to have to say I want SDSU for that rivalry matchup, but my gut's saying Kennesaw State.
I'm going to have to agree with you there. I think South Dakota State keeps it close. I think it's a high-scoring game.
Yeah.
I think it's probably in the 50, 60-point range. And then South Dakota State, I think the winner of that matchup, even if it is SDSU, I think they're just going to come out. It's going to kind of be like the Packers-Vikings when they played that overtime game of it's the next week they both just go out and get beat. I mean, it just doesn't matter. I think the winner of that game is going to have a tough task if they have to come to Fargo. Eastern Washington, UC Davis.
I mean, you kind of got to say Eastern Washington.
They did beat them by 39 earlier in the year, 59-20.
Yeah.
At the Inferno, too. So, and that's where this game's being played.
Yeah, I mean, Eastern Washington, they're kind of, as we've been discussing over the past weeks, they're kind of the team to beat in the bottom half of the bracket. So, at least to my knowledge base, I've still got to say Eastern Washington here. That it just makes sense that they're the team to go there.
It's a closer game than when they first played, but Eastern Washington still pulls it out. And then Weber State and Maine, who's got to make the trip all the way to Utah.
Yeah, Maine had a pretty impressive win over Jacksonville State, winning by double digits. I don't know if the magic continues though, because Weber State also sort of one of the stronger teams in the bracket as a whole, and I just think that, especially with the travel schedule that you discussed, I think Weber State's going to have a big edge.
So can we see 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the quarterfinals, all chalk?
Very, very well could.
I mean, that's possible. What the quarterfinals is. This committee got it right. A lot of people complain about how the committee got it wrong. James Madison wasn't a seed. Top 8 seeds are all in the quarters now.
Yeah. So it makes sense. Everything's sort of clicking into place, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens. I think just from knowing what talking about these kind of things usually does is that one of those top 4 seeds is going to lose. It's pretty likely.
Yeah.
And very easily could be Kennesaw State. If I were to pick one to lose, it'd probably be Kennesaw State, despite my prediction that they would not lose. But, we'll just have to see moving forward.
And now we'll transfer to the FBS playoffs. The final rankings just came out over the past weekend. Alabama taking on Oklahoma. Clemson taking on Notre Dame. Remember back a few years ago when Oklahoma had Trevor Knight, they beat Alabama. Clemson, Notre Dame have played consistently the past few years. They didn't play this year. What's your take on those games?
I mean, I think Oklahoma's offense is probably one of the best in college football, but there's such a disfavorable balance with their defense that Alabama, if they've learned anything over their entire run, Alabama's going to be all over that game. And yes, it's probably going to be a back-to-back scoring affair. It's going to be a high-scoring game like we saw in the Big 12 championship game, which was a very fun game to watch. I got to watch a little bit of that early in the morning Saturday. And I think it's going to be a shootout, but I think Alabama's defense is just so much better at this point. Maybe if Oklahoma still had Anderson, who's been out for a while now and is not going to be playing for the rest of the season. But and on that side, I definitely think it has to be Alabama at this point, because while there is the dynamic quarterback of Kyler Murray, and there's so many weapons on offense for Oklahoma, Alabama's just too experienced for me to say that they're going to lose.
I definitely would have to agree with you there. I think Oklahoma's going to keep it close just because of their offense. Their defense, Alabama's probably going to put up 50.
Yeah, it's just a matter of can they keep up.
Unless Oklahoma's defense starts to rise up, because they got speedsters on that defense.
Yeah, and they had some good moments against Texas, but it was still not great.
It wasn't great. But the thing for me is, Alabama, they haven't played an up-tempo offense like Oklahoma. They haven't played a team that'll spread you out. They're playing in the SEC where it's physical. We're going to run the football at you, and we're going to run it right downhill.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Bison, basically. It's the Bison of the FBS, basically.
Yeah. Oklahoma's offense, great. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch, but just with everything Alabama's got going for it, their depth, their just experience, I still want to say Alabama. But then looking at the Clemson-Notre Dame game, what do you think about that matchup?
Notre Dame, they finally got what they deserved. They finally got into the playoffs. They're 12-0, right?
Yeah, I think they're undefeated.
They're 11 or 12. They're 12-0 because there's 13 games for your conference champion. 12-0. They blew teams out of the water. I mean, USC gave them a fight because that's a rivalry game. It's been a rivalry game for a long time. But not Oklahoma. Clemson is just too experienced. That freshman quarterback just too good. Clemson's defense way too good. Travis Etienne, too much for Notre Dame's defense. Clemson wins by, probably 3 scores. Because last time Chip Kelly was in a national spotlight, Notre Dame got beat by Alabama by like 21, I want to say.
Yeah, it was a bad loss in the championship.
It wasn't a good game at all. A good game in the first half. After that, it was, let's move on. Like Alabama was, we got this now. So I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be Clemson, Alabama. Or Clemson, Alabama, part 3, part 4?
It's something like
Part
that.
4, I think?
I'm gonna say for my final prediction before we take a break quick that it's going to be Alabama or Notre Dame, just because even though they haven't had that kind of matchup yet, I think Notre Dame looks really good this year. So we are going to be taking a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be moving on to professional sports, talking about the NFL and NBA. Stay with us. Conveniently located across the street from NDSU's campus, Herd & Horns is the place to go, whether you're looking for a fantastic meal or just a quick bite to eat.
Hi, welcome to Herd & Horns. Are you from the drink right away?
With friendly staff and excellent service, it's a restaurant for all ages. Herd & Horns, your home for great food and Bison sports. Welcome to Bison Block. If you are an NDSU student, you know it well. It's located right across the street from campus. How would you like to live in the same building as Starbucks, Jimmy John's, and Herd & Horns? Bison Block offers high-quality apartments at a very affordable price. For more information, go to our website at bisonblockfargo.com to apply today. Welcome back to X's and O's, and now we're going to be shifting on to the NFL. And in the NFC North, it's been a very tumultuous season so far, and we saw the entire division in the same spot over the weekend with, I believe, every team losing. Detroit lost, right?
Detroit lost, Minnesota lost, Chicago lost.
I knew the top 3 lost, but Detroit, I didn't know if Detroit lost as well. I should have assumed as much. But the entire division lost their games on Sunday. And Eric, with both the Vikings and the Packers, we saw them suffering similar fates against a very different spectrum of team, with Tom Brady taking out the Vikings in clean fashion and Josh Rosen taking out the Packers after a missed field goal at the end of the game. So looking at the whole picture, you can start with the Packers if you want, but looking at the whole pictures, where do you see the NFC North sitting now? Because things have been all over the place.
Honestly, with the remaining schedules, just looking at Minnesota, Chicago got a tough road ahead of them. With Minnesota, Seattle, Detroit, Miami, who's beaten Chicago before. I know that doesn't mean anything because it was early on in the year, but they did beat them early on. Mm-hmm. They got Chicago and Minnesota both got to play each other. I'm not saying there's hope, but there's just a small chance, like I'd say 2% that the Packers make the playoffs, but they got to get a lot of help.
Oh yeah,
it would
need to be a miracle.
It'd basically be like it'd be basically when Aaron Rodgers said we're gonna run the table. And they went 8-0 up until the NFC Championship game. They just got absolutely trounced by the Falcons.
Yeah.
But it took a miracle throw to set them up to Jared Cook to beat the Cowboys.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story and a whole nother day. But the NFC North just looked bad this weekend.
Yeah.
Green Bay losing at home is inexcusable.
Mm-hmm. Against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, against the Arizona Cardinals, both the Packers and now the Vikings have a bad loss at home this season. We can't argue about that.
Yep.
I mean, when the Vikings lost, weren't the Bills winless at that time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was bad.
That was the first win, and they score 7 points?
I don't.
I think
it was like 10 to 27. Or
it wasn't very much. Whatever.
No,
but
it was a much worse loss than the one against the Cardinals.
The Green Bay Arizona game shouldn't even came down to it. But something did come out of that game. Mike McCarthy got fired.
Yeah, you got your wish. Sound the alarm.
I did get my wish.
He's been saying it for weeks now. He's been saying it since the beginning of the season. So
I wouldn't say the beginning of the season, but
pretty close.
Yeah, might as well. After 4 weeks, I was saying fire McCarthy, fire McCarthy, fire McCarthy.
Yeah.
But the good thing that did come out of this is maybe Aaron Rodgers is going to go back to his old self. Maybe he's going to start playing like he normally does. A lot of reports are coming out saying that something that everybody knew, Aaron Rodgers was changing the plays of the line of scrimmage because he didn't like the call. Mm-hmm. But this season, for whatever reason, this team just looked bad. Like, McCarthy didn't want to run the football with Aaron Jones. He would have 10 touches in the first quarter and like 5 the rest of the game.
Yeah.
If you look what happens when you run the football with Aaron Jones. You get touchdowns, your team scores points. How hard is the formula to follow? I could have coached the Green Bay Packers like that if I had that motto. I mean, now the Packers, I know behind the scenes, Goot and Mark Murphy, Brian Gutenheist and Mark Murphy are starting to look for a new coach. There's a potential list of candidates. Top 2, Josh McDaniels and Lincoln Riley. And I know McDaniels burned the bridges with the Colts. And the Packers, or McDaniels, somehow the agent with McCarthy and McDaniels are related because that's who McDaniels now jumped on with. So now maybe McDaniels goes to Green Bay and decides like, hey, I'm going to go tear it up in Green Bay. And he's got a whole line of assistants waiting to come with him.
Mm-hmm. It's possible that you could see McDaniels. I mean, the last time he had a head coaching job, it didn't go great.
That was in Denver, and they didn't really have a support system. Yeah. They didn't have the team. They didn't have many pieces there. They were just plain out bad.
Well, they had some pieces. They had Jay Cutler. I mean, they had Jay Cutler. I mean, he was young.
Jay Cutler. Yeah. He had a good season with the Bears. Mm-hmm. And I mean, after that, he was just bad.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it wasn't great.
And now you got a college offensive coordinator coming. No, they didn't release the name, but everybody knows it's Cliff Kingsbury, linked with McDaniels. Cliff Kingsbury, Josh McDaniels, those two offensive minds. I don't see Green Bay. Green Bay probably putting up 35 points a game.
I mean, they could, but then the danger is that then you're going to need to do something about defense because that's kind of been
defense is coming.
Yeah, it better.
They got Alexander's a solid cornerback. Mm-hmm. Kenny Clark, Mike Daniels, Reggie Gilbert, Dean Lowry. I know these guys aren't household names. Mm-hmm. Mike Daniels, Kenny Clark, and Jair Alexander are household names by now, but Reggie Gilbert and Dean Lowry, they're starting to come on. Nick Perry, they just need to cut him and cut their losses. Yeah. Clay Matthews, bye-bye.
They need to refresh at linebacker. That's the biggest issue.
And it doesn't hurt that Jake Ryan, he was going to be a contributing factor this year. He tore his ACL in training camp, and that's no excuse for why your defense is so bad. Injuries hurt. It was kind of like the Vikings a few years ago when the injury bug just hit them. Mm-hmm. With Teddy Bridgewater, them expecting to have a good year, and then Teddy Bridgewater just blows his knee.
Yeah.
It's injury. It's football. It happens.
Yeah. And looking at the Vikings, they've got the big matchup coming up on Sunday.
Isn't it Monday night? It's Monday night.
Yeah, it is Monday night. So on next Monday Night Football, the Vikings are taking on the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Seattle, a team that has been playing really well. They went down to the wire against the Carolina Panthers this past week and came away with a win, defeating another.
That was 2 weeks ago.
That was 2 weeks ago? Who did they play this
week?
They
beat the 49ers. They handled the 49ers.
They handled the 49ers, okay. Yeah, my sense of time with finals and everything is just completely messed up. Anyway, but the Seattle Seahawks, they've been playing really good lately. And obviously, they're as deep in the hunt for the wild card in the NFC as the Vikings are. It's a huge game. And right now, it looks to me like the Vikings aren't even it'll probably be a close game. But in terms of what I see with the Vikings, it's not looking good for them. Because when they've really hit adversity, when they've hit the Patriots, when they've hit all the big games, it hasn't gone in the Vikings' favor. When they hit the Bears last, they've just been losing the big games that they need to win, and so I can't see the Vikings come away with a victory, which means it kind of falls down to Chicago in terms of the NFC North right now because they've got the lead currently. And
yeah, but Chicago just lost to New York.
But they didn't have Trubisky.
But yet Daniels was able to lead them to a win in Detroit.
Yeah.
You can beat Detroit on the road, but you can't beat New York. Who's worse?
I wouldn't say New York is worse than Detroit. They're just bad in different ways.
Yeah, they're both bad. I think we both can agree that they're bad.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten a chance to look at Chicago's schedule coming up, but I know it's pretty difficult. I know they have the Rams on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure LA is going to win that game. I don't even care if it's in Chicago. LA's offense is just way too good.
Yeah. And so I think it's going to come down to the wire. I think all these teams are going to be in similar places, and it's going to potentially come down to that last game, Minnesota-Chicago, in terms of
Is it going to be winner gets in?
Potentially, because you look at the rest of the wild card spots, Seattle. If they beat the Vikings and they keep playing the way they have been winning, it's basically guaranteed to be them. And then you look after that, the Panthers have been shooting themselves in the foot, but they're replacing coordinators trying to restack. You've got Philadelphia and Dallas fighting for the NFC East, and whichever one of them loses is going to be right there too. So all of these teams are really grouped in, and it's all about who separates themselves. And the Vikings, if they can win in Seattle, they've got a really good chance to do that, but if they lose, then they're going to be just with everyone else.
Yeah, and I know Chicago's actually got a couple tough next 2 weeks with LA and Green Bay. I know Green Bay looks bad, but that's a rivalry game. Green Bay always plays them tough, 24-23 early on in the year. Aaron Rodgers, miracle comeback in the second half, outscoring the Bears 24-3. But Chicago could almost play themselves out of the playoffs.
They could. They easily could.
I mean, what are they? Don't they have 4 losses or 5?
No. I believe they have 4.
4?
I believe it's 4.
So if, say Chicago loses 2, 2 more, they're at the next. Let's say Chicago loses the next 2 weeks. They're 8-6. They got a week. I don't know who they played in that week. Then they play the Vikings at the final game of the season.
I believe they played. No, not Detroit. No. Miami maybe again.
They played Miami. Chicago played Miami already.
Yeah. Who was it? I can't remember who they were.
Maybe our producer in the control room can look that up for us and let us know. But, but Chicago could almost be they can almost be out of the playoffs. It could just be a second half collapse.
Potentially. And I mean, when your quarterback's out and you're running with your backup, you never know what you're going to get. Yeah. So it is possible that Chicago gets out, but they've built themselves enough of a cushion against everyone else that being up 2 games in the NFL is huge.
But what if Chicago finishes 8-8 and Minnesota and Green Bay both finish 8-7-1? I mean, well, obviously the tiebreaker would go to the Vikings because they won the last game, but who knows what will happen.
Yeah. But before we go, let's quickly talk about the standings of the NBA currently, looking at the East and the West. Timberwolves coming off an impressive win against Houston last night in which they came back from a 19-point deficit to run through the fourth quarter. They've been looking very impressive, and now they're really, despite the loss against Boston on Saturday was kind of left a bad taste in their mouth, but they needed to come in and win against Houston at home, and they did just that. So looking at the Timberwolves, things are looking pretty good. What are you thinking about the Bucks looking forward?
I mean, I haven't been able to watch very many games. I have NBA League Pass, should be watching a lot more games. The Bucks are 15-7, best point differential in the NBA, period. Number 1 defensive team, playing so well right now. I think they're like the 2nd or 3rd spot in the East. They're 15-7. Raptors are 20-5. Milwaukee's playing good basketball. I feel like opposing teams are starting to get used to what they're trying to do now, and they're having so many days off. It's kind of hard to follow them right now because it's not like, oh, we're playing this day, and then we have a day off, and then we're playing another day. They have a day off, and then they have like 2 days rest, and then they play on a 3rd day. It's like, I wish the schedule for them was a little more balanced, but I don't know. Milwaukee still looks good. They still got Giannis. I know they lost in overtime to the Knicks at the Garden, 136-134, but they came back. But I just don't know what to make of them. It's so, I know we're a quarter of the way through the season, but it's still kind of early on for me to get a good judgment because I haven't been able to watch them much. Just with finals week and dead week and just losing everything, and NDSU playing in the playoffs and ESPN coming to town and trying to do all that stuff. And I just don't – they're going to be a top 5 team come the end of the year. But a team that's looking bad right now is the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, they did get a key win last night. They played someone big, and I can't remember who it was. But, yeah, the Warriors, it's a bit of a cause for concern. But you said the Bucks are likely going to end up top 5. I've got a bold prediction before we go. I think the Timberwolves are going to end up top 5 too.
What?
Yeah, if they had made the Butler trade at the beginning of the season, they'd be just where they were last year, which is at the top 3 of things right now.
That's a hot take right there.
It is a hot take, and it's
is that
going to
be like an old take exposed, like when we look at back at like the end of the season and be like,
I don't think so.
He said this. And
I don't think so. They've been playing so cohesive. They make another trade and things could look really good.
They have been. I'll give you that. They have been looking very well. I'll give you top 10.
Mm-hmm. Well, top 10, boo, but
okay, I'll give you top 8. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they can be that 6, 7, 8 range. Mm-hmm. They have been playing pretty good basketball.
They've been playing really good basketball.
Okay, they've been playing really well. It'll be interesting to see what they are able to do down the stretch.
Yeah. But that's all we have for you today on this edition of X's and O's. Come back for our final wrap, Eric's final show, coming up next week, and we'll be back then to talk about more of the FCS playoffs and more with everything that's been going on in sports. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.